Well, hello, and welcome to the Holmes Cinema Clues, Masks, Mirrors, and Media, a show where film, television, and theater become a lens for understanding neurodiversity. Here, we go beyond the screen to explore the characters who mask, mirror, and struggle to belong, often hiding in plain sight. Join our hosts Dan and Dr. Stephanie Holmes as we invite you to step into the role of cinema detective to examine how autism, ADHD, and other neurodivergent experiences are portrayed in the media. This isn't therapy. It's not diagnosis. Rather, it's thoughtful conversation mixed with cultural analysis for a deeper look inside the stories that shape how we see ourselves as well as one another. So, settle in, sharpen your lens, and get ready to follow the clues with your hosts, Dan and Dr. Stephanie Holmes. Are you ready? Let's begin.
Every story has a subtext. Every character has a code. Where some see a script, we see a pattern. Hi, welcome back to Holmes Cinema Clues. I'm cinema agent Dr. Stephanie Holmes. I'm an autism specialist, a researcher, and neurodivergent ally. Today, we are continuing our discussion on Dune. So if you missed part one, please go back and see our part one discussion of Dune, because today we're doing another cinema translator case. As I welcome back to the stage and my co-leader today, cinema translator Agent Walker, we're going to start with the pain box. That's what I call it. Sorry. We're going to start with the pain box as we left last time from the waters of life and unmasking and kind of finding oneself and what does this diagnosis mean and the processing. We're going to kind of start into pain, and Agent Walker will walk us through cinema translation what this clip meant to her.
Come here, kneel.
How dare you use the voice on me?
Put your right hand in the box. Your mother bade you obey me. I hold at your neck the Gom Jabba. A poisoned needle. Instant death. The test is simple. Remove your hand from the box, and you die.
What's in the box?
Pain. No need to call the guards. Your mother stands behind that door. No one will get past her.
Why are you doing this?
An animal caught in a trap will gnaw off its own leg to escape. What will you do?
Oh.
Silence.
Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings obliteration. And I'll face my fear, not permit it to pass over me and through me. I'll turn the inner eyes, it's both.
Enough. Like sifting sand through a screen, we sift people. If you had been unable to control your impulses like an animal, we could not let you live. You inherit too much power.
What, because I'm a Duke's son?
Because you are Jessica's son. You have more than one birthright, boy. Jessica? You've been training him in the way. Tell me about these dreams.
I had one tonight.
What did you see?
A girl on Arrakis.
Have you dreamt of her before?
Many times.
Do you often dream things that happen just as you dreamed them?
Not exactly.
Goodbye, young human. I hope you
Hey, I love this.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank
So
you.
that part of the movie is hard to watch no matter what your neurotype is. If you have any empathy or compassion in you, watching somebody go through that. Now, did you read the books? Because some people say in
No.
the book it was even more like traumatic what Paul went through.
I did not read the books. And before I get crucified by anybody out there was so much trauma in my life as a kid. I mean, early childhood trauma, family trauma and so on. So I did not have the room to dive into things as much as I wanted to, because I was literally trying to survive what was happening around me. Right. So where this test comes in, it makes me think of what we talked about in our last show about me being accused of cheating all the time. You can't be this smart. You can't be this articulate. You can't blah, blah, blah. There's that. But then there's also the thing, this hits multiple things. There's also a lot out there about autism rage, what happens when we're in pain. I witnessed this with my father, who absolutely is on the spectrum. And that's a for real thing. But people isolate that and say, oh, it's part of this disease, right? That you have this anger. And I say, no, my gosh, we are compressing all of ourselves in order to fit in when we're masking. And so when pain hits us, there is not a lot of room to be able to express that pain in a safe way. And so we can explode. We absolutely can. But it is a cause and effect issue. It is not because of the autism. It's because of how much we're compressing. And I'm saying that for a certain, it's obviously a spectrum. So if you're a high masker, which, people don't like that term now either, but if you have been masking, I mean, I was masking the autism, the ADHD, and I didn't want anyone to really know about the abuse that was going on at home either. So all of that combined, if I got in any kind of physical pain, I literally decomposed and I had to go somewhere and just scream and do all of those things, because that would not have been welcome in my house. I would have been beaten or something, but it had to go somewhere because we feel it all, a lot is going on under the hood.
Yeah, you're talking about two things, right? So for different perspectives, again, no matter what your neurotype is, some people have low interoception, some people have high interoception, what can look like high and low pain tolerance. And also being physically present in your own body. A lot of my clients would say kind of live in their head and sometimes are disconnected to their body, which might mean, I was so focused on my video game, I didn't even know I hadn't eaten in 2 days or I hadn't gone to the bathroom, or because those biological urges were not there because there was that disconnect. And then when there is pain or something like that, it may be elevated because it has built up over time, or it took a lot for that person to register and to get their mind and body connected.
Right. Regulated. I mean, that's the biggest thing for us. I always try to say this to people now, and I don't know that I have the language perfect yet, but I'll do the best I can here. We are not, it's not like we're some separate species, right? You do feel like that for a minute, right? Like, oh my gosh, this is why everything is so different. This is why I don't get along with neurotypicals or whatever the story is. I mean, I went through all those phases. I'm glad that I did. I came out the other side of it and went, oh, we're just all human beings. It's just that everything that comes our way, we think about it more. We feel it at a visceral level. We're just more in terms of how we process life and how we feel things and how we see things. It's not, that's why you can say, well, neurotypicals mask too. Of course, everyone does that to a certain degree. It's not just autistic people, or autists. It's something that we all do. It's just that for us, it's imposed upon us, or we self-impose it because we really aren't welcome in the general community. And we do walk into what is talked about as a deficit-based system. And I always think if things were different on the outside, if the world was built for the most sensitive, the deepest feelers, you know what? If the world was wrapped around that, it would be better for everybody, not just us.
Yeah. And that's the thing. When Sydney was interviewed one time, this local show in Atlanta wanted to kind of do some artistic representation of someone on the spectrum, trying to like take public transportation. And they were interviewing her and they kept saying, how would somebody with autism do this? How would somebody with autism do that? And she looked at me at one time and she said, I don't understand the question. And the person's like, what do you mean? She's like, how would any person do that? She's like, I don't know that I can tell you about my internal processing of how I got there, but I don't understand why you think I would do that differently. I just process it differently. And so that person wasn't getting it. They did a beautiful job on show. In fact, I didn't tell my youngest what the play we were going to go see. And when the person was acting, she was like, that feels like Sydney on stage. And I was like, well, she is the person they interviewed to do that. And they watched a lot of her YouTube videos to get her mannerisms and all of that.
That had to be a trip. Was that a trip, Stephanie, to watch someone portraying your daughter?
That was a good, they did a really good job. They got her mannerisms down really well from watching her YouTubes. But that was the part that kept like throwing her off. Like, what do you mean how an autistic person would do that? How do people do that? And so I was like, no, you talk to them. I'm just here if you get stuck.
I love her so much. It's so funny it's so great to see how the two of you have raised your kids. I haven't, met your son, but I mean, just how connected you guys are. I mean, I've known you for 8 years now, and I met you in person with Sydney.
Right.
So to see her be this whole other thing, this whole other person, and it's amazing. But I could see her saying, something like that. Wait a minute, what?
Right. Okay. Erica will get me because you said son. So I have 2 daughters.
Oh, I'm sorry. Be like, I am so sorry. No, this is what I do. I just family. It's not even that. My stepbrother, who I haven't talked to in 3 years, gets on the phone with me last night, and I said, "Oh, your 2 sons." I did the same thing, and he's like, "No, I have a daughter." So this is where I know this information, but I don't feel bad about it because this is just something I don't remember details about
all of that.
Yeah. My brain is not meant to be an archive brain. It just isn't that way. It's a synthesized brain. And as soon as I get I'll lose a loop on something and I'll go, 20 seconds later, if it's meant to come back, it'll come back. So instead of punishing myself saying, oh, that's your ADHD, you can't, your brain is not firing the right neural pathway. So I just go, no, it'll take a minute. And it always comes back. But same thing with, so imagine I have this gap where I do that, like with you. I know your kids and stuff. And I know my stepbrother certainly and what his kids are. But imagine how punished you get when you do have that kind of a brain for not knowing, and how hard you have to mask in order to make sure that I remember every detail. This is why we practice speaking before we go to events, because we know that we're going to do things just like that. And now I just allow it to happen and I laugh about it because I'm not meaning you any harm, and you know that.
Right.
And I don't need to be corrected by the public for what's going on with my brain. Whatever. I'm an intelligent person.
I just like, I
this.
know Erica, and she's like, I'm just bringing it up for her, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Nothing wrong with that. And I don't have to go to shame about that. I was corrected, and I probably would have masked because I would have been, Stephanie corrected me. And then it would have been weird for me with you because I would think, oh, she's upset with me. All that stuff happened then, and now I just go, oh, big deal. Okay.
Right. Like if I'm going to say something wrong in Dune and miscorrect it, you just say, hold on. That's not
exactly.
Cool. It's cool. All right. So the next clip I want to show, and say I might say it wrong. We are Harkonnens.
Yes.
Harkonnens. Okay. So let's show that clip.
We're Harkonnens. So this is how we'll survive. By being Harkonnens.
All right. What do you want to translate to us from that clip?
Well, to me, it's like when you get your diagnosis, either their self-diagnosis or the official diagnosis, and you really realize, oh, this explains. It's when I talked to you that first time after I got diagnosed. You were the very first person, and you said, so tell me about your relationships. Do they always feel like they were in a dumpster fire? And I went, yes. It's that whole thing where you go, oh, this is how I'm wired. This is how I've been functioning and over functioning. And you kind of, you're still insecure and threat mapping a lot because you feel like your entire life has been foot in mouth, your entire life, literally. And you mask so that happens as little as possible. And so when you figure out, oh, this is how I'm wired, to me, it makes me think of in the movie where Paul figures out, oh, I'm actually a Harkonnen. Okay. Got it.
And what is tragic for later in life, women on the spectrum, when they having relationship difficulties, it is more likely to be pathologized as bipolar or borderline personality disorder. Women's behavior on the spectrum will be pathologized more than their male counterparts. Now, to the male counterparts, sometimes they are misdiagnosed as narcissistic by an untrained person. Sometimes it can be both. But even with narcissism, that's not as pathologized as borderline personality disorder. Like a borderline personality disorder is one of the more difficult personality disorders to treat and work with. So if a woman is already spotted, or a clinician or a doctor's like, oh, Kristen's like borderline or bipolar, when that gets marked in your chart and the person doesn't know that you're autistic, like
right,
how that person codes you and deals with you, dismisses, oh, she's exaggerating. Oh, she's just trying to get my attention by being in the office. And so women on the spectrum have to go through way more to get that diagnosis.
Brutal.
Not
Brutal.
dismissed.
You know how many women that are actually on the network, on my podcast network, that did a whole show based on I am borderline or I am bipolar, that after hearing me, this is what is so great about doing what you do. I do not care how many people I reach. This, it's going to make me cry. This is what I care about. Those women, after watching me cry ugly on a show during unmasking and be out of it, discovering what the heck, I just walked through a wormhole here. My life looks completely different. And to have them go, thank you for doing that, for being willing to be that vulnerable, because I just got diagnosed and I am not borderline. Not that there's anything wrong with that at all, but the correct diagnosis is what's important here. So to have these women come to me and go, because you talked about it, I went and checked, and this is actually how I'm wired. And then the evidence is, one of my friends is becoming like a champion weightlifter, bodybuilder. She didn't do that before. She is shining in this because she knows her wiring. She would have never tried that as under the label of borderline. She's doing it now as this. And she got through that phase of, oh my gosh, I've been masking my deficits. She got through it faster because she heard me talking about it. She heard me being uncomfortable. She heard me, unraveling sometimes on a show, because I was always very put together for all my shows. I only talked 20% of the time, and I gave everybody else the audience and, gave them the mic and was supporting other people talking, but I wasn't being who I really am. And so as soon as I started doing that, just to see women especially go, wow, okay. I don't care if I only did those things just for those 5 women to be free in life. That's all I need. I'm good. I can hang it up,
Yeah. Sydney, we say she was fortunate and unfortunate that she had behaviors. And when you have behaviors in the public school system, you will get fast tracked. But they started off with intermittent explosive disorder. They started off with pediatric bipolar. And the only fortunate part, I guess, for her and me being her mom is I had gone to school in the 90s. I knew the DSM-4. I had heard this thing called Asperger's syndrome that I supposedly was never going to meet. I was never going to meet anybody with Asperger's syndrome. And I was never going to find a woman, on the spectrum.
Right.
I'm like, wait, I think that's what this is. I don't think that is. And it took 2 years and 7 professionals at the age when she was 5, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah. It takes
the
a minute.
mindset was still male, male presentation. And her behaviors is what got her kind of outed, a little bit more to get the right diagnostic procedure.
And this part, I had so much trauma. I was in court against my own father at 12. I had so much trauma that is the label that encompassed everything. So I was missed in terms of anything like that because it was the 80s who was diagnosing women then, it was rare but everything ran through the lens of trauma, and that serves you well to a point, but it doesn't, but at a certain point it stops serving you because there are other things going on. My life is not in as much trauma. Or why does this keep continuing? I am going to every mental health person on the planet. I have a whole network. I'm interviewing people across the globe, and something still isn't clicking until you get that diagnosis.
And I tell my clients, if you are unsure about borderline specifically or OCPD, and you were diagnosed with that younger, like before 2013, maybe circle back around. If you were diagnosed as a female as ADD or ADHD before 2013, there was a time in the diagnostic manual we were not allowed to diagnose both. It was a rule out. It was either ADD, ADHD or autism spectrum. You could not diagnose someone as both. So what the clinician had to do was pick the one where the behaviors were screaming the loudest, which was usually ADD or ADHD, because that's what the school cared about. What could you manage? What could you treat? What could you medicate? What would, change the behaviors in the school? So ADD, ADHD, we saw like this big surge in it too. But what was happening is even with medication and management, that wasn't the whole picture.
It speaks to Dune too, to loop that in, that we don't know until we can see, and some things are about our evolution as a species of as human beings. We didn't have the language at the time. I remember when I first started podcasting was like 2014, and I would go to an addiction conference because in my mind, addiction and mental health are the same. They belong in the same bucket, right? That's what I thought. But I would go to a conference and I'd be in the green room and I'd be like, hey, dude, you run a treatment center? Come sit down. Let's do a show and talk about it. And he would go, oh, no, I don't talk in mental health. I'm in addiction treatment. And I'd say, excuse me, what? But over the years, those things come together. And now new people coming into it are like, really? That was separate at one point? Well, that doesn't make sense. It's our language at the time. You have to see. So to me, the whole source of life and all of that is you open your eyes and you see. It isn't just about the autism spectrum. It's about the human beings on a spectrum. Our understanding evolves. We had language for narcissistic abuse, which I talked endlessly about. Then we had language for trauma. Now we have late diagnosed autism coming into the awareness, and people are going, oh, well, maybe that wasn't narcissism. Maybe it was actually this. So we're circling closer to having a more gentle and wider perception of what goes on with human beings. And are there people full of narcissistic distortion that are autistic? Yes, there are. And it's not a good combination. Oh, it's not a good combination.
It takes a while to figure that out, right? Because some of my autistic men took on narcissistic traits of a parent in a masking, self-protection, survival thing, almost like an arrogant superiority mask.
And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. That's how you survive.
Right. That was a survival thing. It's probably not going to work in your romantic relationship. So we're going to have to figure something else out. Right. For some my autistic male clients, they're in a patriarchal, misogynistic, religious roles kind of thing. So it's the autism plus this is the way I'm supposed to act because my religion or culture says I'm supposed to act this way as a man. That's not fully narcissism. And then there is narcissistic personality disorder.
You know it.
Plus autism, and that is the scariest of them all. Narcissism in and of itself, plus, the neurology going together, just they synergistically work.
I say it where autism and ADHD specifically, and also, OCD is also another one. Whatever we are is amplified by those things. So if you are narcissistic and you have that diagnosis, it's going to be amplified, right? And if you are lovely inside and you do your work and you go to and you figure yourself out and you remove a lot of distortion out of yourself that you had to use for whatever reason to get through life, then that part of you that is lovely and cares about everyone and is just as sensitive and all of those things, it's like a beam of light goes right on you because of this wiring. And the most amazing human beings can have a completely different view of life. It's not like, oh, it's a label. Let's sap a label. I have so many people that, oh, you're not going to start walking around saying this just because of this label. And I'm like, really? Are we really going to? Now I can't even identify with something that means so much to me because now I'm suddenly in a cult.
Right.
So I say, allow your loveliness to come out, be all you can be, all of those tropes fit here. Because this wiring is going to be like a beacon out there if turned on with you being regulated, you knowing who you are now, you realizing that you have things to offer to the world that may not look like what society says are offerings, but let me tell you how much of an offering they actually are.
As I transition us to this last clip that you wanted to talk about, neither one of us are saying your neurotype allows you to act any certain way that you want. She has said multiple times, do your work, have done your work, figure out your regulation. Because if you're going to be in relationships with others, you've got to figure out between the two of you the processing differences and regulation. And I don't get to just go to Walmart however I want and say whatever I want, no matter what the neurotype is.
Right.
There are certain social context rules that fit in different environments, and that's different than masking. Showing up at a wedding because wedding attire is black tie, I'm going to unmask and I'm wearing my Wonder Woman outfit. Okay, that's not unmasking. That's just being inappropriate. But to go in and feel like I can't be me in these formal clothes, I've got to act a certain way or talk a certain way or don't talk this way, or that's the masking we're talking about. There are still socially appropriate context in various situations. And then you have the choice of not to go or how long to stay or take 2 cars, or I will come watch your first dance at the wedding, but I can't, process that for 2 hours, right? That's the unmasking, not I'm showing up in my Comic-Con and you're just going to have to deal with it. You don't get to tell me how to dress at your wedding.
I'm dressing up as a furry in my fox costume for a wedding that was supposed to be black tie. Yeah, that is not you saying I'm, you don't get to stand on a soapbox and be like, look at me, I'm so great. I won't let anyone conform. No, you do need to kind of be respectful of everybody else and what's going on.
Right. You don't get to be because of your neurotype. All right. The last one. This next one is Lady Jessica. We'll end on this one. So we'll pause for that clip.
How are you?
Better.
How is she?
She was frightened, but she's okay. Paul. She talks to me. She believes in you. She says, "Equitsa Zadrak, Eshimahokif." You're so close now. Only one step remains, and you will become the Quisa Zadrak. Only one step remains. You must do what I did. You must drink the water of life. Then your mind, it's going to open and you will see. Roshashaka.
All right. What do you want to translate to us through this Lady Jessica? It says she goes insane. The clip on YouTube said goes insane after drinking the poison.
Right. The source of life. Yeah. The water of life. And I could be saying that wrong, even though I've watched the movie 1,000 times, but I get panicked. Oh, I got to remember which one it is. And that's part of my wiring. And
stop, viewers. Stop. Just stop putting the shame through that right now. Stop it.
Exactly. I don't filter through that. So I don't like how they labeled that clip, but I wanted it. I thought, I shouldn't do that. But then that's exactly what happens to women when we go through this process. It's what happened to me, as I talked about in another recording we did, about how I went to people that I trusted, that I had good chemistry with before I was diagnosed, who suddenly were like, "You're insane. You don't know what you're talking about." And I'm thinking, 2 years ago, we were buds. Like, what just because I got a diagnosis, now I'm public enemy number one? What? That's how I looked at what was happening with Lady Jessica. She has this profound visceral experience. She can now see everything. And she has a moment where she's just dogged about everything and she's obsessed with her son drinking this too, and she's obsessed with bringing forth this knowledge and and doing some things that aren't great also, but that's part of this process. If you've always been something else and suddenly you have this epiphany, this awakening, you go through that examination process, people need to give you a minute. Hello, you know what I mean?
Growth, your arc, your curve, learning new things, applying new information, applying new data analysis, right? Well, we are going to have more conversations like this. Now, in our squad meeting, we talked about X-Men and Cerebro. What are other cases or movies you're hoping the two of us or other parts of the squad will get to discuss? So I know X-Men is coming. What else is coming from your interest?
I like the movie Limitless, and people might roll their eyes about that, but I like that also that something is ingested, and we're not saying everyone should go do drugs, but that's what the movie is about, right? But that, to me, it's the ingestion of it is information. Oh, this is how I'm wired, and now that I'm not compressing myself, I have more access to my brain. I have more access to my body. Things can travel up and down a lot easier because I know what my wiring is. I know where to go get help and how to discern what is actually help and what is not. There's a whole process in that. So that movie to me speaks to that first awakening. I won't ruin it by talking more about it, but that first slice of, oh, okay, all right, got it. This is the through line for me.
Absolutely. And I'm hoping on X-Men, Sydney's like, I want to do that one with Kristen because she had this whole rogue mystique inside of her. I want the cure, but no, I'm going to kick your butt for telling me I can't be this way. And I'm going to be blue and I'm not going to mask anymore. But no, wait a minute.
Right.
I just want to experience life like other humans. So that's kind of her take on it. And you had Cerebro. So I am an X-Men fan. So I want to talk about that one too. All right. So for today, we will say thank you for joining us on Holmes Cinema Club. But this one, it's a wrap. Join us the next time when I have my expert cinema translator right here. We go through some more movies. Join us next time. Like, subscribe, pass it on. Disagree, agree, be respectful in the comments.
Peace out.